So when you really think about it, you see the heart of the practice is these two, what's called the two bodhichitta, right? To experience how things ultimately exist. Of course, we could go deeper into that by using a more reasoning, But you see, the main message of this text is how to use love and compassion in everyday life by doing giving and taking. So yesterday I mentioned, and we did a meditation on giving and taking. Now when you take away this problem of other, there's a lot of things coming to the mind, So for example, in the way the Dalai Lama explains and Lama Zopa Rinpoche explain, you actually imagine that you take the problems and the suffering of others into your heart. You see, so at the innermost core of yourself, where is your self-grasping or your self-cherishing or your self-centeredness? And then you see all the problems that we face, its root cause is this self-centeredness, is self-cherishing, this thought of me, I'm more important than anyone else. So you use the problem of other people out of compassion, you take their problem into you and you in a form of dark smoke, and then you imagine that dark smoke destroys your self-cherishing, your self-grasping, kind of like that. So that's one visualization one can do. Personally, my sense of self is more in my head, because that's where I think, So when I'm selfish, when I'm self-concerned, all these thoughts happen in my head. So when I take the problems of other, so I imagine that they destroy this thought in my head, because these thoughts are in my head and I'm always thinking about me, what can I do to make me happy, or, kind of like that. So I use, you see, the problem of others, so I inhale it and I imagine that they destroy these thoughts of self-concern, of this thought that thinks only about me, my happiness, my liberation, my enlightenment, my spiritual development. So you see, I use the problem of other, this compassion, to destroy this sense of, self-concern. So you have to find a way to make it alive for you, you see, to make it heartfelt. So usually in Tibetan language, we use the term self-cherishing. Personally, I prefer self-concern or self-centeredness, because cherishing, it doesn't mean that you don't love yourself, that you don't wish you well. So Lama Geshe used to use the term selfishness, often. So one has to really get it deeply, you see, is because I think of me, because I'm self-centered, because of that, because I want to protect this self, I'm so concerned about me, and that's where my negative emotion and my negative actions come from. So one uses the problem of other that we see, and that we imagine in others, to destroy this sense of self-centeredness. Like I said yesterday, most of us, 23 hours a day, we think about me, and maybe an hour we think about others. So gradually we try to change that, to think more and more about others and less about me. And the more you do that, funnily, the happier you become. Because always thinking about me, what can I do to make me happy? Where can I go to have the best meal? Where is the best coffee? What can which is a good movie to watch tonight? And, so all this self-concern actually is very hard to get satisfied, I mean, how many movies have we watched and at the end, I was looking for a good movie, but actually it wasn't that good after all, So the self-concern, self-absorbed energy, if you really check, it's very difficult to find satisfaction in it, Whereas if you, with your heart, you think about other, how can I make other happy, you see, whether you actually help people around you or say kind words, or you see, in spiritual practice, you mostly think about them. You see, you wish them well. So for their sake, you're going to recite this sutra. For their sake, you're going to do this meditation. For their sake, I'm going to this class. All these things you do with the thought, for their sake. So, for their sake I eat this meal, for their sake I enjoy this coffee. So for their sake I drive there. So it's more a mental space that you cultivate. See, instead of doing it for you do it for other. But the action might be exactly the same. It's just the way you turn your mind that changes. And it makes a huge difference. You see, if most of you have done some retreats, and then you're alone, during some time. But you see, for example, myself, I do retreats, but because I'm doing my practice, I try to do my practice for others. You see, I never completely feel alone. Even though physically I'm alone, but I feel all living beings are there with me, because I do it for them. So I don't feel lonely. And I think if you check your mind, you see many people, they live in cities with many people around and they feel lonely, But if you check where the loneliness comes from, is from self-cherishing, from self-centeredness. If you're in the city, even though you don't know the people around you, but if you care for them, if you wish them well, so suddenly you don't feel alone, even though you're in a city and you don't know anybody, because you can send love, compassion to beings, and that makes you relax. That makes you relax. And then you can engage in conversation without protecting your sense of self. You feel relaxed and you can say, hello, how are you? And, engage a little bit chit-chat, kind of nice, You don't have this, protective, I might be hurt or things like that. No, you feel comfortable and you can communicate, So I think really the self-centeredness, if you really observe, you see, the thing is now you read instruction or you hear instruction, and most of you have heard that 100,000 times, right? So it's nothing new that I'm telling you. But what's interesting is then you observe whether it's true or not in your life, how you react, how you are when you're self-centered. Oh, I need this, I want that, or I need to go there, I need that friend. Check the quality of your mind when you have this thought, of me, I need this, I need to be with that person, I need that thing, I need to go there. Look the quality of your mind. And then look at the quality of your mind when you don't have that, and then you say, what can I do for other today? Who can I make happy? Who could I call, not for me, but who could I call for them? Who could I say hello? Who could I say I love you? Who can I say, oh, you're an important person in my life. I'm glad that you exist and that you're part of my life. You see, if you check the quality of your mind when you care for others, suddenly there's a lightness, there's a warmth and a joy. No? So we start with the people around us in our life, and then gradually we can do that with a stranger, with the cashier at the shop, the barista that makes you your coffee, or the beggar in the street, hello, how are you? How is your day? Can we all living beings, we all want to be happy, and we make this is our ego carapace that makes us unable to communicate with each other. So we can let go of that, and love, compassion makes you get rid of that self-centeredness. And there's a peace, there's a lightness in there. When you have a warm heart, there's a lightness, you're happy, and it's okay, So the key there with tonglen is the purpose is to destroy this self-centeredness by realizing how painful it is to be self-centered. That it's not a happy state of mind. And the thing is that actually when you meditate, you see a difference. You see, when you meditate for you, I do the prayers for me. I do my sadhana for me. I study for me. You check your mind. You can always study more. You can always, the meditation could always be better. You see, the self-grasping mind is never satisfied, even in your spiritual practice. If you let go of that and you do it for other, I take refuge for other, I do my sadhana for other, I do this meditation for other, I read this text for other. Suddenly there's a lightness, an easy going about it. And it's much more enjoyable. So usually, in the method of generating bodhicitta, exchanging self for other. So first, like I mentioned yesterday, you have to see that, like myself, each and every other living being wishes to be happy and not have any problem, that we all same. And then one reflect on the problem of this self-centered attitude. You see, so one here, that is the cause. Because of self-centeredness, we create negative karma that brings about suffering, that is the cause of the mental affliction and things like that. So we hear all these things. But then you have actually to observe whether it's true or not. You have to observe your mind, how it is when I'm self-centered. Am I happy when I think about, where can I get a good coffee? Am I happy at that moment? What movie can I watch tonight? where's the best restaurant, you know. So you check your mind there. And then you check your mind, you know, who can I make happy today? You know, who can I say a kind word? To who can I smile? And then you expand that, you see, whether you do it physically or mentally to all sentient beings, you see? So in mind training, one does that, you see. One goes to the bathroom for all sentient beings, you know. So in India, for those which have gone to India and use the great wild world as your toilet, you know, sometimes the pigs, they come actually to eat it before you even finish. You know, for them it's so delicious. You know, they cannot wait. You know, it's like that. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche has a mantra, so that when you go to the toilet, the spirit, you know, which are the hungry ghosts, for them that's delicious, you know, so that they can eat it, right? So for them, that's, you see, they haven't had food for millions of years and they're so hungry. And they can only eat if you dedicate it to them, right? So even going to the toilet can be an act of generosity, you know, kind of like that. So, you know, you take a shower, may I clean the body of and mind of all living beings, you see? You go out of your house, you know, may I lead all beings out of cyclic existence, you know. So it's these things where mentally you're in love with all living beings, you care for all living beings. You know, the thing is that we, how to say, our mental scope, what we think about is me, my friend, my family, my community, and maybe a little bit my country, and maybe a little bit the human beings on this planet, you know. So bodhicitta is actually thinking of all living beings, you know, and whatever one does is for all living beings. So instead of having oneself with this various layer of me, is actually, it's reverse, and one is there for all living beings. You see, instead of being focused, the mental energy focused on me, one is focused outwards to all living beings. So psychologically, there's a reversal of one's attitude. You know? And in that reversal of one's attitude, there's such much freedom and joy and lightness. You know? So, in mind training, you cultivate this thought. So at the beginning, sometimes it appears to be a little bit fake, you know. So one has to go back to think, you see, of the advantage of caring for others and the disadvantage of caring for oneself, and then have this expansive mind that cares for all living beings. You know, it's just a state of mind, no? It's such a beautiful state of mind to be in. And then whatever one does, you see, one does. So, for example, one drinks, you see, one can offer to all the you know, sentient beings that live with one's body, or one can imagine, you know, I drink this to stay healthy so that I can dedicate my life for all living beings. You know, I eat this food so that I have energy in my body so that I can live my life for others. You know, things like that. So one tries to feed this energy of caring for others. So I think I speak, you know, I don't have that experience, but I know here in this room, many people have this experience. Here, there's many old students and many people I see, I interact with you, you're my friends, and I see how beautiful your mind is and your life is, So and most of you, you lay people, but the way you live your life is such a beautiful example, of living your life dedicated to others, to have a kind heart and so forth. So it's beautiful, So, and even though, you have all these experience and, this kind heart and so forth, you still come to classes like that, even though each one of you could be sitting here and give an amazing lecture, It's true, don't think you cannot, It's amazing what one can do. But you're very humble and you're able to come. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. So I think, you see, this warm heart is really, from your own experience, you see how precious it is. So it's just going from being 23 hours a day concerned about me and 1 hour concerned about other, gradually go more and more and more towards thinking about others, and do one spiritual practice for them, cooking for them, drinking for them, going to the toilet for them, sleeping for them, waking up for them, bearing suffering for them, being happy for them, dying for them, having cancer for them. You see, it's just changing the mental outlook, and it completely transforms. It gives meaning to whatever you do. So it goes from being 23 hours concerned about self and 1 hour concerned to gradually it's 12 hour, and then gradually less and less concern about me and more about other, and then one day we become like the Dalai Lama, where it's 24/7 for others. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, 24/7 for others. And they don't look so miserable. They look actually quite happy. So they are good role models. They show us where it leads to. So that's the training. You see, what this text says, encourage us is to do that. And then to see ultimately, things have no essence. If you look deep down into it, into anything, it's not there. It's just mental imputation on things. But here the main emphasis is really love, compassion, and living for others. So then you see, whatever you experience in the point 4, on the basis of 3 objects, the 3 poison arise, transform them into 3 sources of virtue, right? So you see, we are still ordinary being and we go through various emotions, right? So we have, when we experience pain, we imagine we free other people from their pain, because we care for other. So we use whatever we go through to feed one spiritual experience, So when we have pain, whatever, if you have headache, may I take upon myself all the headache of all beings. And by myself experiencing this headache, may nobody experiences that. So you see, your headache feeds your love and compassion, your altruism. Instead of having headache, oh how miserable I am, I have headache. Instead of getting depressed and unhappy because you have headache. So the same experience, oh I have headache. Okay, so let's use that experience to develop my love and compassion, my altruism. So by myself having this headache, may nobody has headache. May I'm able to free all beings from their headache. No? So that's a very virtuous thought, you know. And because it's a virtuous thought, it's kind of peaceful thought, you know. It's a peaceful emotion behind. So even though you have the physical pain, but the mind is actually at peace and has a sense of self-esteem, self-respect, instead of being miserable and having self-pity. So the pain, the physical pain is the same, but the accompanying mental state is different. And then you see, when you have a good experience, you share that with all living beings, you know. You have a nice walk on the beach, you think, you know, may all living beings have a nice walk on the beach. You know, how wonderful it would be if all beings had such a good time. No? So instead of being narrowly, you know, giggly on the beach and, you know, jumping up and down and, you know, playing with the sand between your toes and, you know, so absorbed into you, completely oblivious of all other beings in the world. You know, no. So you enjoy, you walk on the beach, but your heart offers it to all living beings. You know, instead of being on your beach with this narrow mind of only thinking about you, you're walking on the beach thinking, offering that to this huge space of mind, offering to all living beings. So any good and bad experience like that one can transform. So it's training, you see, how to say, we forget it. We all know it, but we tend to forget from time to time. So we have to be reminded, and we have to expand our mind, you see. Because we are just one living being, and there are infinite others. So the scope of a bodhisattva is infinite beings. You see, a bodhisattva doesn't live for himself, he lives for all living beings. It's a scope of mind, that's all. Nothing else changes. It's just instead of living for you, for your family, your friend, you live for all living beings. And suddenly it gives a whole different meaning of what you do, of what you experience, of what you live. Suddenly, you see, your life has a meaning. Has a purpose which is so infinite, no? It's so wonderful. So there in the text it says, in daily life use reminders. You see? So it's good, for example, I stayed at Michael's, you know, in Seattle, and he has little notes in his bathroom on the wall, you know, different what to think, you know, when you brush your teeth, when you wash yourself, things. So this is good to put reminders here and there, you know, because how to say, we forget, you know, we do things automatically, or we are preoccupied by a problem and things like that. So to have these little reminders here and there, you know, how to think altruistically, how to brush my teeth altruistically, how to take a shower, how to wash my hand altruistically, you know, how to cook altruistically. You know, all these things can, instead of doing them automatically, you know, you see, if you do them automatically without any thought, it is neutral karma, right? If you do it with self-concern, it becomes negative karma. If you do it altruistically, it becomes hugely positive karma, because you do it for all sentient beings. So if you do it for one person, it's positive karma. But if you multiply it by that infinite number of beings, so the karma becomes huge. So it's really a missed opportunity each time you forget to do it for all sentient beings. You prevent yourself from creating this huge positive karma. So each action, we should try, to do it for all sentient beings. And what it does, you see, instead of living with a narrow, self-centered mind, you live with this huge mind that encompasses all living beings. And that's a Buddha mind, that's a Bodhisattva mind, that's the state of consciousness they live in. And that's why they're so happy. And that's why their life has a purpose, because they live for all living beings all the time. So we have to aspire and train our mind to get there. And then so you have to put little notes, you see. I'm going to watch the news for all sentient beings. I'm going to turn on my computer for all sentient beings. So all the things that you usually do actually quite self-centeredly. I'm going to watch this movie for all sentient beings. It's possible. You see, it's possible. You watch a movie, you can do tonglen, all the drama that happens in the movie to people, and you can reflect that it's not really happening, the movie. It's just fake, not fake news, but fake. Nobody really dies, it's just tomato sauce and, nobody falling in love, they already married 5 times, So, nothing really happens there, It's just a complete illusion. So you reflect on emptiness, So those which have seen how a movie is made, how they repeat the same kiss 7, 8 times, till the mouse is sored, because they have to take the perfect catch, So how they repeat the same accident again and again, till they get the perfect catch, and how, the main actors actually, how you say, is replaced by a double, kind of like that. So when you see how a movie is done and how the sunset is not a real sunset but is added after one, or they speak in the car, and the countryside passes, but actually they are in a studio, there's no, So you imagine how the movie is done and you see, it's kind of complete illusion, So and the more you see the illusion of the movie, the less you get carried with the emotion, right? Because you see it's just a movie, it's just made up. And that's what emptiness does to you. You see, it's the same thing. If you believe it's true, it's real, all the emotion can function. If you see it's empty, no emotion can function. And you have peace. So a sign, you see, the more you realize emptiness, the weaker your mental affliction become, right? Till they completely disappear, right? What makes the mental affliction able to function is that we see things and people as real, solid, solid me, solid other, and then solid emotion arise. But if you see, no solid me, no solid other, no solid, then the emotion becomes weaker and weaker. So same thing. So you can look how your emotion function in a movie. If you look like, for example, a horror movie, and you so you see the music. then you imagine how it is made, you know. So then the whole fear and the whole emotion disappears, you know. So it's interesting. You see, you can watch movie and it becomes a profound teaching on emptiness, you know. Or then you think it's really real, and then you meditate on love and compassion for people which suffer from all these emotion, all this drama in life, you know. So you can actually have a good time enjoying your movie, and still spiritually it's beneficial for you, no? So Lama Yeshe used to say, no, watching movie can be Lamrim teaching, you know. It teaches you about life, you know. So you see, there's a way of watching a movie where you know, you like an animal, you like a cow in front of the TV, and there's no spiritual benefit at all, you know. You're just taking it in, you know. No spiritual benefit. And then you can take it in, you use your wisdom mind, you know, you use your Lamrim mind. And then, you know, you can relax watching a movie, and at the same time, spiritually, you get some benefit, no? So it completely depends, you know, of how we look at things. So here then in the text, we reach to point 3, using adversity as support for realization. When misfortune fills the world and its inhabitant, transform them into the path of awakening. See all misfortune as purifying past negative action, and use them to train in renunciation, compassion, and emptiness. So this is an important point. It comes also in the Guru Puja, you know, in the in that text, you know, in the Lamrim prayer. So this is important. You see, if one understands karma, then whatever suffering problem we have is the ripening of one's negative karma. You know, it doesn't happen by chance. So that's good to remember. You see, and then, so when you have pain, when you have problem, it's actually a broom that clears away, you see, that negative action, that, you know, that negative action, you know. So one way of thinking, you know, see, it's better to have headache now, it's better to lose my house now, or to have this car accident now, then, so I clean this negative karma. It could have continued to grow and brought about suffering in lower realm. So I cleaned it now by this problem or this suffering or this sickness that I can bear now. You know, it could have become much worse. So that's you know, a way of thinking. And another way of thinking, you see, we do tonglen. You know, we take on the suffering of other. You know, we mentally imagine. So a bodhisattva would think, oh, I have succeeded. You know, it's actually working. It has actually worked. You know, you see, you know, I have cancer and I visualized taking all the suffering of that. So now I've succeeded. I have been able to take all this suffering of other people for myself, and it has made this cancer. You know, so fantastic, how wonderful. I was actually able to free other beings from their suffering. You know, so that's how a bodhisattva would think. You know, so whatever problems, you say, oh, I succeeded in taking other people's suffering. And you see, that state of mind is so virtuous, so positive. You see, instead of having cancer and being self-pity, you know, being miserable, being unhappy, you know, say, why me? You know, what a drag, you know. So instead, you see, so you have the cancer and you say, how wonderful I was able to free all beings from theirs. You know, so the physical situation is exactly the same. one way of thinking, it makes you depressed, it makes you unhappy, it makes you scared. The other way, you have this enlightened courage. Say, wow, how wonderful, I was able to free all beings from their problem, by my having this sickness. So it's actually difficult to do. It's not, I say it like that, I'm completely healthy, and, but to actually do it when you have the problem is difficult, so it needs training. But that's how a bodhisattva do, that's how, So for example, there's the story of Geshe Lama Konchok in front of the Gompa at Kopan during the monsoon is covered with water, and he slipped and fell and hurt himself, and the thought came, by myself experiencing that, may the obstacles to the life of His Holiness comes upon me. The thought is straight, like that. And then many high lamas, for example Serkong Rinpoche, he was perfectly healthy, and then he saw there was some obstacle to the life of His Holiness. Then he imagined taking the obstacle of the life of His Holiness upon himself and passed away. So you see, bodhisattva, they don't mind so much suffering and things like that. You see, suffering becomes a problem if we are so self-absorbed, self-concerned, me. If you think all living beings, you see, if your home psychology is all living beings, what happens to you is not that important. It's just leaving the body, taking another body is not a big deal. Where the real suffering comes from is not from the physical pain, it's from the psychologically absorption. Me, I'm so important, what happens to me is really dramatic, But in reality, we have given billions of life away. We have died so many times. We're still here, We don't really die, we just leave this body. And the pain is caused by our ripening of negative karma. So, so if we don't want to have pain in the future, we should stop creating negative karma. Or stop creating the cause. So experiencing pain also reminds us of that, to be more careful about karma. And also, you see, when everything goes well, it's actually difficult to have this aspiration for liberation and enlightenment. The life is too... That's actually why many lamas says, our Western lifestyle is a bit difficult for wishing to reach liberation. Life is too comfortable, And sometimes even doing our retreats is too comfortable. And there is something in having some hardship. When you're a little bit uncomfortable, how to say, your mind is more at the edge. You live more on the edge. I don't know, for example, even when we travel, you might have had that experience. You travel and everything is organized for you. You make a holiday, with a tour guide, they buy the airplane ticket for you, they bring you to the hotel, they take care of all your things, and your mind is dull. You have to buy your own ticket, you have to take care of your taxi, and life is vibrant around you, and you're a little bit scared because there are pickpockets, and and there's a lot of dirt, and stray dogs, and God knows what's lurking behind the car. So you kind of, you're very awake. You know, there's a sharpness in your mind, you know. You're very awake and you experience the holiday completely differently. You're on the edge, you know, you're very alert for everything, you know, because, you know, and you enjoy things. It's much more vivid, crisp, you know. When it's an organized holiday, you know, same thing for spiritual practice. If you're too comfortable, if it's too easy, something missing, you know, something missing. It's almost like your mind becomes a little bit dull, you know, a little bit too comfortable, you know. If you have some pain, some hardship, you know, how to say, if it's a little bit long, you want to get out of it, you know, you want to get free from cyclic existence, because you feel it's uncomfortable, you know, you want to get out of it, and because it's uncomfortable for you, you know it's uncomfortable for everyone else, you know, so the love, compassion is more real because you feel it's uncomfortable, no? So I think hardship is good, you know. Some hardship is really helpful, and it gives you this sharpness of mind, this, you know. Lama Geshe used to say, you know, you need hardship, you know, you need hardship. For example, if you see the student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the close one, they have a lot of hardship, you know. Rinpoche gives them all their job, they're exhausted all the time, you know, you know, you say, you know, you would think, you know, Rinpoche, how come you do that to your students? You know, they all feel exhausted and stressed and, you know, how come? But there is a lesson there. There is something there, you know. I think it's difficult to get high realization if your life is too comfortable, no? So you see, if one has difficulty, it's actually good, no? So you have to think about it. You see that actually problems are good, because otherwise, how to say, we seeked a spiritual path because we had some uncomfort in life. You know, there was some, how to say, how you say in English, existential crisis, you know, or existential question we couldn't answer. We weren't satisfied. So that put us on our spiritual quest. So problems are good. You have to remember, when you have problems, it was actually not that bad. And then you see, in any situation, I think, whether we're happy or not, you know, whether we have problems or not, like Shantideva says, you know, when you have problem, if there's a solution, you just do it. And if there's no solution, what's the benefit of getting unhappy? You just add another problem, another layer of problem, no? So I think if we have cancer or other sickness, you know, it's completely okay to seek treatment and, you know, to try to do our best to get healed, right? But to be unhappy and depressed about it doesn't help. And often they say, you know, if your mind is peaceful and happy, it actually helps you to get cured, you know, to recover. So later in the text it says, you know, a sign of a spiritual practitioner, a sign of success, is that you always have a happy mind, you know. So you can check, you see, whether you face difficulty, whether you face sickness, you face loss, or whether you gain, or whether, you know, you become famous, whether you're praised, your mind is always the same. You don't jump out of things. You're not jumping up and down when you gain something, and you don't get depressed when you lose something. You kind of always a little bit, happy, peaceful mind. So they say that's a sign of, you can check, that you have made spiritual progress. You're happy all the time. You're okay. And then the next advice is immediately apply the mind training to whatever happens in your life. So immediately, with whatever happens, you do this mind training, So you see a beggar by the side of the road, you naturally do tonglen. You pass by with your car, you don't stay unaffected. You use it to do tonglen. So whenever you see a problem in someone or hear about it, so you try to remember to do tonglen, to take away their pain mentally and to offer them peace and happiness. And then you try to universalize it. You see, like that person has this problem, all living beings have problem. And you take this universal problem away from living being and you offer them peace and enlightenment. So like that you use whatever happens to you in everyday life. You're tired, may no beings be tired. You feel sleepy, may no beings be sleepy. You're happy, may all beings be happy. So you use whatever. It's a state of mind. You see, in retreat, it's actually the main practice one has to do. When you do retreat, it's not the session that is important. It's not how many mantra you recite that is important. It's actually your attitude. Is to do every session, every prayer, every mantra for all living beings. That's what is important. So often for me, when I'm in retreat, that's what becomes the main thing. Is to see whether I do everything for others. So that's my main. I don't care how many sessions I do. How many mantra I recite, and so that's not the most important. Because it says, you see, whether your practice is beneficial or not, is whether it's done with bodhichitta or not. So if you recite one mantra with self-cherishing, it might maybe benefit. It's like the merit of creating one mantra. You multiply by the number of living beings. It's as if you had recited billions of mantra by reciting just one. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, if you do one prostration, not thinking of all living beings, you have done one prostration. You do one prostration thinking of all living beings, is as if you had done billions of prostration. So it's a huge difference whether you do it with an altruistic perspective or without. It's the same action, but the spiritual benefit is like day and night. So to try to do everything with, as much as possible with bodhicitta, with this altruistic mind. And in retreat, one is kind of fortunate because one doesn't have distraction, many things, many interaction with people. So one can say, that's my main thing, I do everything for all living beings. And when one loses it, one brings the mind back to that. And then I do this prayer for all living beings. I recite this sutra for all living beings. Everything for the sake of all living beings. So it's a kind of rehearsal or familiarizing the mind with that state. And I like another term that Alex Berzing used for familiarizing. He used repeated practice. You see, is repeating that thing again and again till it becomes actually easier, you know. And at the beginning, it's completely fake, you know, but then it becomes more and more sincere, you know, till it becomes genuine, what you feel, what you think, you know. And they say, you see, spiritually, if you would achieve only one realization in its life, may it be bodhichitta, you know. If you had, you see, the most important spiritual realization to get is this altruistic state of mind. There's no other realization, no other experience that are more worthwhile than that. No? If we could become a bodhisattva in this life, we would enter the path to an omniscient mind, the path to enlightenment. You see, the door to the state of consciousness of omniscient mind is the state of consciousness that cares for all living beings. You see, before we have this mind that cares for all living beings, we are on the path for liberation. Even though you say, you know, blah 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 for all sentient beings, as long as you don't care for all living beings, you're still on the path to personal liberation. Even though you do Mahayana prayer, even though you do Tantra, as long as you don't have in your mind, I care for all living beings, and it's for their sake that I do this practice, that I recite this mantra, you're still on the path for yourself. No? And sometimes we don't even have the renunciation for cyclic existence, you know. So sometimes even our doing sadhanas, reciting mantra, might not even become a cause for liberation, because, you know, this determination to be free is not really stably there, because we don't really understand it yet. You know, how to say, we're still attached to pleasure. How to say, you know, we want to have a happy meditation, basically. You know, we want to have a blissful meditation. You know, we want to have calm abiding. You know, we want to have some bliss. You know, we want to have some love, but how to say, we are attached to it, you know. We don't want to transcend, we don't want to get out of inherent existence, you know. You see, it becomes like attachment to the suffering of change, you know. So we want to get rid of the unhappy emotion, you know, the unpleasant mental state, but out of attachment to the pleasurable one. So often, if you check, you know, myself, honestly, if I check honestly, you know, sometimes it's like that, you know, it's just attachment to pleasurable experience. So then, even the renunciation for cyclic existence is not there, right? And then it's even questionable sometimes whether I do it out of wanting, you know, for benefit my future life. You know, sometimes I just wanted to have a good time right here and now. You know. So sometimes it's even questionable if it, you know, if my sadhana becomes dharma. No? So it's interesting to check. You see, or the motivation. You know, why I'm doing this. You know, why I go into samadhi, into single point of concentration, why I visualize myself as this and that. You know, what's the motivation? And then often I say, oh, there's some serious lacking there. Because you see, we might do it at the beginning of the practice, but half hour later it's completely gone. We're completely into the thing, and it's completely for self-satisfaction here and now, right? So it's good, how to say, we can fool others quite easily. We're all good at that, right? But to fool oneself, that's very sad. And actually we are quite good at that too. So at some point, it's good to look into it and just be honest, and see, So I think if you really reflect on it and you see the benefit of having this altruistic mind, how much peace and joy it brings to you, how much meaning gives to your life, and then whatever positive thought and action is, they multiplied by the number of living beings. So like Shantideva says, there's no greater purification of the mind, there's no greater accumulation of merit than to have this altruistic state of mind. So there's no quicker path to enlightenment than that. So I think this is really, really the key, whether you're happy or not, whether your life has meaning or not, whether you're on the path to omniscient mind or not, is whether you have this altruistic state of mind or not. So there's nothing more important to dedicate one's time and energy to cultivate than that, So that's And then it says, enhance your progress with 4 activities. Accumulate merit, purifying obscuration, make offering to spirit and to Dharma protectors. So accumulating merit basically is doing good deeds, you see. So, for example, for a mother, accumulating merit could be changing the nappies of her baby, So you can transform that into accumulating merit, May I care for all children in the world, may I care for all beings, May I clean the dirt of all beings, May I care. So I think anything that you do, you clean your house or you clean the house of somebody else, may I clean, the mental affliction of all living beings. So then that becomes purification, accumulation of merit. So we shouldn't think only purify, accumulating merit. It's actually reciting some mantra or reciting some prayer or doing some visualization. Anything that we do can become purification, accumulating merit, if you think about it properly. And what it does to the mind, you see, how to say, it's very interesting. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, there are some beings, they hear one sentence about emptiness and they realize it. And other people, they study it for 20 years and they don't get it. How come? What's the difference? The difference is in the quality of mind. You see, what we call barbarically, accumulation of merit or purification. How to say, purification, accumulation changes the quality of your mind. How to say, it's almost like there's a purity in the mind, a purity in the mind or an intelligence there, a sharpness that makes you able to get things. Yeah. In the West we would say good luck. Many businessmen, they say, many successful businessmen, they say, I wasn't the smartest one. In the classroom I wasn't the smartest one. But I was at the right time at the right place, and I met the right people at the right place at the right time. And that's how I was successful. You see, the karmic conjunction came together, and then, you see, the opportunity happened. And I think spirituality is the same thing. The conjunction of events come together, and you get it. This positive karma, or this kind of, we call it merit or good luck, that makes that you get the things together. It's very interesting to see, among those which have been on the spiritual path quite a while, you check yourself, with your peers, with your friends, and then you check who, amongst you, the one which seem to have developed some qualities and those who have not. And often you see, it's not necessarily the sharpest, the smartest, that have the biggest heart or the kindness, or that, that you seem that they have, developed this peaceful, happy mind. So it's interesting how the cause and condition, how it works, So that's the beauty of aging, is that you know people since a while now, So you can check, you can see. It's actually nice. It's nice, So of course, if one can, do prostration to purify, reciting Vajrasattva mantra, making mandala offering or making water offering bowl. So you see, if you do every morning, you offer water, in front of a Buddha on your altar, and you do it like a zombie because you're not awake yet, you just feel you just put water in a bowl, and afterwards you wonder even why do I put water in a bowl? In front of that metal statue. Sometimes the whole meaning is done, we just do it automatically, Om Aum, Om Aum, Om Aum. Thinking about the kettle where the water is, making our morning tea, what am I gonna have for breakfast this morning, no benefit, or maybe little bit benefit due to the power of the object, but in terms of our own mind, no benefit. So you see, if you offer water to Buddha for the benefit of all living beings, you do it so to clean your mind and to create this inner, this inner good luck, or this inner state of receptivity, so that realization can come, for the sake of all living beings. Then each water, each bowl you offer, incredible positive meaning. So one has always to check one's mind, what it does to the mind. Then making offering to spirits. Actually, you see, usually we make offering to spirits so that they don't harm us, that they don't create problem to us, And in the mind training, actually, we ask them to create problem to us, we ask them, please give me a little bit more problems, cut my water from my tap, you know, make a drought so that I don't have any water for my flowers, create a little bit more fire, a little bit problems, good. You see, problems are good so we ask them to harm our self-cherishing mind, our self-centeredness. And then, you see, more we have problems, so more we can generate compassion and love for others. So in the mind training, we ask spirits, if one is courageous, to create more problems to oneself. Otherwise, if one is not, that doesn't feel comfortable for that, one makes offering to them so that they smile at us, that they send rains of flower upon us, that they provide good conditions for us so that we can make spiritual progress. So it depends on our strength of mind. And same thing with Dharma protector, we ask them, So it's actually good, I find it's actually a good practice to offer a cookie every day, what it does to the mind is that usually we only think about human beings and maybe a little bit animals. So if you offer something to the spirit every day, you become aware, there might be spirits. There's another dimension of beings which they want to be happy, they live in the place. So we say there's landlord or owner of the place. We think we buy the house and it's our own, because I paid for it. But in another dimension, there might be other people living in the trees, living in the water, living in the place, and we don't care about them. We only care of humans. So to offer a cookie every day makes you aware, maybe there are other beings, So, and we offer them something, a cookie, kind of like that. May you be happy, may you. So I think for me spiritually it's actually helpful. It makes me aware of other beings, which normally I wouldn't see and I wouldn't care, so much. So in sadhanas after you have gods of the element, so we have spirit of water, of fire, of air, of earth, and then there are spirits living under the ground, living in trees, in rocks. So I think people which commonly, for example, I live in Washington North, and there's many American Indian, and they do many ceremonies, and they're very much in touch with the elements and the spirits of all, of nature. They very much do things with spirit of nature. So for them it's very alive, So it's interesting to be around these people because for them it's very real, So they always speak about these spirits and things, make offering to them and ask them things. So they prohibited them. How you say? Propitiate, thank you. So they propitiate them when they seek, when they have loss and things. So they ask them, to help them. So it's kind of interesting, you see, to be in connection with other dimension of beings. I feel so. There's a short prayer, it's a 4-line prayer, and you offer a cookie. So it's very easy to do. It doesn't take much time. Usually the best time is at sunset, or so you offer a cookie and you recite this 4-line and you wish them well. It's a kind of nice practice. It's kind. I find it makes you in connection with. So sometimes you offer a cookie, or another practice you offer incense. So it's, yeah. And Dharma protect, same thing. You can make an offering of a cookie or of incense, and you ask them, to help you in your spiritual development, or if you're strong, that they create some trouble to you, so that you can increase your love and compassion. Shall we do lunch break now? Maybe we make lunch break now.